I'm Isaac from the Mountain Takes. What if I told you the deadliest part of Everest isn't the summit, it's the walk to work? Lakpa Dende Sherpa survived Everest in 2017. He didn't survive the trail to base camp in 2026. Sit tight, because now I'm going to explain what actually happened. It was the morning of May 3, 2026, on the trail between Gorak, Shep, and Everest Base Camp. Gorak Shep sits at 16,942 feet, the last inhabited settlement before the climb begins, a small cluster of stone lodges. Surrounded by the gray moraine of the Khumbu Glacier, Base Camp sits at 17,500 feet, just 2 miles away. For trekkers, this stretch is considered routine. It's not technical. It's not steep in any dangerous sense. There are no crevasses to navigate, no fixed ropes, no avalanche zones. Thousands of people walk this exact path every season, many of them tourists who have never climbed anything in their lives. It is, by every definition used in mountaineering, safe. Lakpa Dende Sherpa was walking this trail on the morning of May 3rd. He was 52 years old. He was returning to base camp to begin his season as a high-altitude guide for 7 summit treks, the same company he had worked with for over a decade. This wasn't his first season. It wasn't his 10th. This was a man who had been walking toward Everest in one form or another for 25 years. He had done this walk more times than he could probably count. The trail held no mystery for him. The altitude held no surprise. He knew every rock, every turn, every place where trekkers stopped to catch their breath. Somewhere along that 2-mile stretch, Lakpa Dende lost consciousness. He collapsed. The exact moment isn't recorded in detail. There was no avalanche to trigger an alarm, no fall that anyone witnessed, no storm that forced an emergency response. He simply stopped. Other people on the trail, or members of his own team, found him. They tried to help, but by the time anyone could act, it was already over. Lakpa Dende Sherpa was dead, on a trail he had walked dozens of times, 2 miles from a destination he had reached more times than he could count. To understand why this matters, you need to understand who Lakpa Dende Sherpa was, and what 25 years at extreme altitude actually does to a human body. He came from Gudul, a small village in the Salukumbu district, the same region that has produced generations of the world's most accomplished high-altitude climbers. According to the Himalayan database, his climbing resume included 30 expeditions starting in 2001. He had summited Makalu, the 5th highest mountain on Earth, multiple times. In 2016, he climbed Manaslu. In 2017, he stood on the summit of Everest itself at 8,849 meters, the roof of the world. For 25 years, Lakpa Dende's job was to put his body through conditions that the human body was never designed to survive. Every season, he climbed into the death zone altitudes, above 8,000 meters, where the air contains roughly a third of the oxygen available at sea level, where the body cannot acclimatize, where every system from the heart to the brain to the blood is operating under chronic, repeated stress. This isn't a one-time event for a guide like Lakpa Dende. This is a yearly cycle, repeated for decades. The cardiovascular strain of high-altitude exposure, repeated year after year, leaves marks that don't show up until they do. Thane swore. Gorak, the managing director of 7 summit treks, gave a statement after Lakpa Dende's death. Lakpa Dende was a part of our family. He's worked with us for well over a decade. This wasn't a corporate platitude. In the world of Himalayan expedition companies, the relationship between operators and their high-altitude guides is genuinely close. These are the men who fix the ropes, carry the loads, and keep clients alive on the world's most dangerous mountains, often for a fraction of what the climbers themselves pay for their expedition permits. Lakpa Dende had been doing this work for 7 summit treks for years, season after season, body absorbing the cost each time. Initial reports indicated that Lakpa Dende died of natural causes, language that in a mountaineering context almost always points toward a cardiac event. A heart that has spent 25 years working overtime at altitude, repeatedly subjected to low oxygen, cold, dehydration, and physical exertion at the edge of human tolerance, can fail anywhere. It doesn't need a summit. It doesn't need a storm. It can fail on a flat, easy, 2-mile walk. that a first-time trekker could complete without difficulty. Nepal police opened an investigation, as is standard procedure, but the early consensus among those who knew the terrain and knew Lakpa Dende was that this was the mountain calling in a debt that had been accumulating for a quarter of a century. His body was flown by helicopter to Lukla that same day, May 3rd. From Lukla, the process of returning him to his family in Gudal would begin, a village he had left behind season after season to support the expedition industry that brings hundreds of millions of dollars into Nepal's economy every year. An industry built almost entirely on the labor of men like him. What makes Lakpa Dende's death especially significant is what it represents for the 2026 season. This was the first fatality of the year on Everest's main route, and it happened before the climbing season had truly even begun. The Department of Tourism had issued climbing permits to nearly 1,000 people for the various 8,000-meter peaks that season, including over 400 for Everest alone. Every one of those permits represents a client who will rely on guides exactly like Lakpa Dende men, who will fix lines, carry oxygen bottles, break trail through the Khumbu icefall, and walk up and down this mountain dozens of times in a single season while their clients make one attempt. The story of Everest that gets told in documentaries and films is almost always about the summit, about the final push, the death zone, the photograph at 8,849 meters. But the story that doesn't get told is the cumulative cost paid by the men who make those summit photographs possible. Lakpa Dende didn't die reaching for glory. He didn't die in a dramatic rescue or a heroic last stand. He died walking to work, on the easiest part of the entire journey, because his body had simply run out of capacity to absorb what 25 years of this work demanded of it. In the days that followed, tributes came in from the climbing community, from clients he had guided, from fellow Sherpas, from the company that called him family. But for his family in Gudal, the tributes meant less than the reality. A husband, a father, a provider was gone. Not from a fall, not from an avalanche, not from a storm that made international headlines. From a walk he had done so many times that nobody, not him, not his employers, not anyone, thought to consider it dangerous. This is the part of the Everest story that rarely gets attention. The mountain doesn't only kill people in the death zone during summit pushes. It kills slowly, through accumulation, through the invisible wear of 25 years of repeated extreme exposure. It kills men walking to base camp at the start of a season, men who have already given the mountain everything it could visibly take, and who still owed it more. Lakpa Dende Sherpa summited Everest. He summited Makalu. He summited Manaslu. He completed 30 expeditions across 25 years, and in the end, the mountain didn't need a storm or an avalanche or a crevasse to collect what it was owed. It just needed 2 miles of flat trail and a heart that had finally given everything it had left. I'm Isaac from The Mountain Takes. If you've ever given everything to something that slowly took more than it gave back, if you've ever wondered what the real cost of safe work at extreme altitude actually is, subscribe, because there are more stories about the people who make the mountains possible for everyone else and what those mountains take from them season after season until there is nothing left to take. I'll see you on the next descent.